Alright, in this video I'm just going to talk about quadratic formula. You use quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations that do not factor, because of course if you could factor, all you would have to do is set each factor equal to 0, solve for x. That's the easiest case. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to talk about when things don't factor. Okay, so take for example this equation right here. Does this factor? So we would try that first. And so we'd have our x, we'd say what are the factors of 1, 1 and 1, and those do add to 2, and so be x plus 1 and x plus 1. Set this equal to 0, and we'd think, okay, well, it's the same factor twice, so if I just set x plus 1 equal to 0, subtract 1 from both sides, I get x equals negative 1. And that's my only answer. And this actually has a multiplicity of 2. I'm not going to go into it in that video. Okay? And so let's see what we get when we do the quadratic formula. Okay, so in this case, A is 1, B is 2, and C is 1. So you'd have x equals negative 2 plus minus the square root of b squared, so that would be 2 squared, minus 4a, which is 1, c, which is also 1, all over 2a. So then we'd have negative 2 plus or minus square root, and then we get 4 minus 4 is 0. So this whole plus or minus, when this turns to 0, the plus minus goes away, and that's what causes, instead of 2 answers, there just to be 1 answer. So if you notice, we got the same answer whether we factored or did quadratic formula. So let's try this again with something that doesn't factor. Okay, so here we have a new quadratic, and again, you could of course try factoring first. That's always the easiest thing to do. Now the only factors I got are 1 and 8 and 2 and 4, and there's no way I'm going to make positive 5, so factoring does not work. We have to use quadratic formula. Okay, so here we have that A is 2, B is 5, and C is negative 4. It's very important that you get your negatives. Okay, so I don't have quadratic formula written down here. You should have it written down, or you can rewind in the video to see it. But it's going to be negative b, so negative 5 plus minus the square root, b squared, so that's going to be 5 squared, minus 4a, which is 2, and c, which is negative 4, all over 2a. All right, and so we just, really in calculus, this is really not a bad way to leave your answer, but on a multiple choice, that the answer is going to be simplified. So it's important to know how to simplify. And so here I have 25, and I have minus a negative, so that makes plus. 4 times 2 is 8, 8 times 2 is 32, and then all over 4. Simplifying just a little bit further. 25 plus 32, that would be 57. Which does not simplify. So this right here is as far as I'm going to go. You could definitely simplify this radical if you needed to, if the answer is called for, if it was a multiple choice. But again, in calculus, this really is not a bad answer right there. Okay, just briefly, if underneath the square root you get a negative number, okay, remember that that is imaginary. Okay, the best news about calculus is we do not do this in calculus. If you get that, you stop and you just say no answer or empty set or something like that. We are not going to deal with imaginary numbers in calculus. If you take enough calculus classes, you can get back into that, but in this class, not at all.